Well, I'm Matt. I'm Director of AI and Creative at Brave Bison.
And I'm Rick. I'm Group Strategy Director at SocialChain. And just before we get into it, just to set a little bit of context around why we're here and talk about AI and insight. I'm not going to be the first person that talks today about we're facing into a changing world and et cetera, et cetera. We kind of know it, we feel it, but we do face into kind of a consistent barrage of newness, new platforms, new behaviours, new trends, new tech, et cetera, et cetera. And with that kind of consistent reinvention, we get challenges for some, we get opportunities for others, but what we all probably feel is a big dollop of kind of complexity. Not that we are the coalition of the confused, but we are kind of facing into a space of difficultness and lots of moving parts. So one of the key founding principles of Brave Bison is to overcome that complexity, is to kind of set ourselves up to help our clients overcome that complexity. And we do that by building in capabilities that consistently allow our clients to deliver on solutions that are totally simple, totally easy, can cut through, and that's the whole ambition of what we're set up to do. And we do it across the whole customer journey. So we have a whole piece from trend to spend, if you want to call it that. We've got a media network where we look after our own properties and help clients commercialize theirs. Through SocialChain, we build stronger connections between people and brands. Our performance business helps our clients grow their online business through media, through technology, through data. And our commerce function is all about building digital solutions, designing digital solutions, integrating those solutions for all sorts of businesses of different scales and different complexities. Which brings us round to the fact that the thing that unlocks all of these capabilities and makes all of that work in real life is insight and direction. And that takes us back round to AI, and I was going to say it's kind of like the new. It's not that new, but it does bring with it, as I said at the start, challenges, opportunities, but an awful lot of complexity.
So, that's a loud mic, isn't it? I'll hold it about here. In this new strategic frontier that we face, Rick's just mentioned that we now have the ability to derive insight from large language models, and we're going to talk a little bit about how we do that. It starts with people, as most insight does, and what we know about people, as opposed to consumers, is how we've referred to them on this slide, but I think people are people, we're all human beings. But 71% of them have expressed a desire for more meaningful experiences and connections following the pandemic. And then 91% of people are more likely to shop with brands who recognize, remember, and provide relevant offers and recommendations to them. Personalisation, of course, which I'm sure is a word that we all hear about 300 times on a daily basis. And then about 7 hours a day is spent by the average human being on the internet. So that's a lot of time. And what it all boils down to, again, no surprise to anyone in the room, I'm sure, is that in 2024, brands need to know people better than they ever have done before. But there's a bunch of headwinds in our path. Now, if we sort of go back to about 2018, 17 or so, we had DMPs, data management platforms, that ingested first-party data from brands and overlaid that with third-party data. And with the power of that and with a good data science team and the fact that the DMP could process the data so well, we knew our audience really well. They were in clear, sharp focus. But a bunch of stuff has happened since then. We now have a bunch more data sources, but not necessarily the concise and precise ones that we want to work with. We have the likes of partner platforms who build out audiences for us. We have the walled gardens of the big tech companies who kind of have their part to play, but don't really share everything with us. And then various other data sources. So we kind of end up in this situation where we've got so much data that it's hard to kind of get through it, and we have a kind of analysis paralysis situation. But then, of course, what's also happened in the last few years is GDPR's come along and kind of killed the DMP. We're heading possibly into a cookieless future, and then we have this issue of fragmentation. We know that our audience is out there, but they're doing different things on different channels at different points in time. So their digital trails, their digital footprints are kind of hard to pick up and piece together. So we basically get to a point where our audience have become silhouettes to us in recent times.
So yeah, so where that leaves us is we know the what, but we don't know the why. So we can understand and see behaviours, but we don't know anything about the motivations behind those behaviours. So the demand and the need for insight and for strategy, I would say that, wouldn't I? But the demand for that is going to be higher than ever before. But there's a challenge, right, with doing that in this kind of modern economy, and that's the methods that we use to derive insight and to uncover insight are increasingly forming a tension with the world that we're trying to understand more about. So, for example, you could argue that the process of research and insight is quite a slow methodology for what is a very fast-moving world. You can argue that it is built around the ideas and it's built around hypothesis in a world that wants to be much more quantifiable and de-risked. And you can argue that it's expensive in a world that's got really squeezed budgets. So we're in a position where we need to kind of find a solution to that. So by now you probably realize which one of us is the intelligent one. I have no idea how to fix it, so I spoke to Matt.
You do yourself a disservice, Eric. One of the ways that we can fix that is by something that we're calling silicon audiences. There are different names for this. Other people call it synthetic research, for example. And what silicon audiences are. Well, actually, we'll ask the question first. We'll ask, who are they? Of course, they use AI, right? That's why we're all on this stage today. They are effectively mirror images of the people that we see in real life. Now, when you consider that large language models, and particularly the biggest ones out there, have been basically trained on all of the data that exists since the internet begun, and all of that data is essentially generated by humans, then of course, large language models are trained on humankind, and therefore it's no leap to conclude that they are therefore a reflection, a mirror image of humanity. So silicon people are essentially that, and what we've done over the last couple of years or so, since we've had the public availability of large language models, is to build systems, tooling, and processes in the agency that brings our clients' audiences to life. That is basically a process, an iterative research-led process that we've gone on to be able to build out these audiences on a repeatable and highly usable basis that allows us insights into their world. So oftentimes these are very niche, and they're created with limited data and larger data as well at the same time. But effectively, what they do is they bring our clients' audiences to life for us to be able to engage with whenever we want. And that sounds great, I'm sure you'll all agree, but how do we know that we can trust them? Again, it comes back to the point that these large language models, again, have been trained on all of that data that exists on the internet, and that point is kind of there. And I think has already been landed. So we know that we can trust them. Of course, we have issues around hallucination and inaccuracies that we often get back from working with large language models and generative AI at large. But that's where the human comes in, of course. We are the guiding hand on the wheel, at least for now, and we're there to fact check, to proof, and to refine and hone and craft through various techniques that we'll talk about in a few minutes as well. So that, I'm sure you'll all agree, sounds good so far, but what you're probably wondering is, what does one of these look like? I'm sure everyone in this room has used GPT by now, or a similar tool. But what we've done, just for a quick demo today, is we brought Amy to life. Amy's a 35-year-old Metro Centre woman. She's probably a mum of two. She's fashion conscious, and she follows retail fashion and trends. And the reason we brought Amy to life is because we work with a lot of retail clients, and particularly some in the fashion sector. So this is one of our models. This brings Amy to life, and what we can do is just have an idle chit-chat with her. We can go on more structured journeys. We can test creative with her, and as we all know, it's oftentimes those kind of casual chit-chats, those water cooler chats, that often bring the biggest insights. So that's one possibility, but there are others.
Yeah, absolutely. So we can simultaneously use kind of quant data and structured quant data, while at the same time using more qual techniques of, as Matt says, kind of open conversations, following up with a deep dive on specific questions, so it's much more kind of casual. And what's been really interesting for us is being able to build out specific clusters. So 20 Amy's that represent different attitudes or that we want to go into in deeper, or particular audiences that might be hard to recruit for kind of standard research. So there's lots of applications in terms of how we've been testing this at the moment.
And we can bring multiple versions of Amy to life as well, like 5, 10, 20, 100 different versions of her within a given cluster or segment, so that we can understand the differences that happen on an individual basis, again, in humanity as they do happen in the world of large language models. And just a sort of a further bit of proof, this was originally proposed and researched as a thing by Cornell University in September 2022. Now, the sharp-eyed amongst you there will recognize that it wasn't until October, November 2022 that ChatGPT first launched on us. So this predated that. They used GPT-3 to propose this idea of silicone samples. And what they found was that language models can be studied as effective proxies for specific human subpopulations in social science research, or in our world, our clients' audiences. That proper conditioning will cause them to accurately emulate response distributions from a wide variety of human subgroups, which you might, again, in our world, draw back to fine-tuning and a bit of training and a bit of data ingest and the modeling and the iteration that we do with our audience models. And finally, that it's nuanced, it's multifaceted, it reflects the complex interplay between ideas, attitudes, and socio-cultural contexts that characterize human attitudes. So, all of which is to say, again, that people in large language models are a reflection for humanity.
Yeah, so it's academically robust, as Matt's demonstrating there, but it's also practically really versatile. So we are deploying these agents, these profiles, kind of across the business, across our whole agency value chain, really. So we know that they're really good for ingesting large amounts of data and helping us wade through that, but we're finding them really useful at kind of the front end of client relationships, maybe in pitches where we've not got a lot of data, so they can give us a hop on that as well. We're starting to embed them in our whole strategic process at different stages, so we can both kind of stimulate and pressure test some of the outputs of that before we're actually into delivery and putting resources behind it. And then towards the executional end of the process, we can start to test some of the assets, some of the user experience recommendations, for example, that we're about to make. So we're weaving it right through. And we started to build some interesting learnings out of it. I think the first one I'd go with is the fact that this combination of kind of low cost, speed, accuracy allows us to pressure test multiple theories, multiple scenarios before we or our clients put any resources into it. And in doing so, it's kind of like glimpsing into the future. And if that feels a little bit like a stretch, it's certainly de-risking a lot of the thinking when we go out before we start putting budgets behind things.
And of course, good inputs equal good outputs. We must have heard that 1,000 times, but it's true here as well. The data, the prompt engineering, and the way that you work with the models will definitely boil down to what you get out of them. Of course, we have to go on some iterative fine-tuning to get there as well. And then one of the really interesting things about this is that we are now able to reach really niche audiences. So, for example, if a brand comes to us who has zero audience data, they just don't know who their audience is, we can go out and find them. And oftentimes we can kind of boil that down to even an individual level if we absolutely need to, albeit most of the time we're talking about, a cohort or a set or a segment of people.
Yeah, but just before Matt totally replaces me with AI, there are some things that we've all learned on the considerations as well. And here's a bigger mission at the moment that we're finding is it misses the messy bits of customer research where there is so much insight. For example, it misses the physical cues and gestures that you get from people when they're trying to explain something. It misses the insight that's in indecision when somebody's trying to articulate what they think about a brand or an idea and can't quite manage it. There's lots to get there that can often be more powerful than a really clearly articulated answer from AI.
Have to be careful about leading the witness as well. So the data, the ingest data, the training data, we have to be careful about. We don't want to basically lead the witness down a certain garden path, because the responses that we want to get out of it are, of course, research-led, and need to be open-ended and need to be kind of proven in that way. Then bias is always an issue with any kind of form of generative AI and large language models. There's bias inherent in the models, again, because they've been trained on humanity, so we have to prompt that out.
Well, and to finish off, there's loads to run out, loads of opportunity here, but here's kind of 5 things that we found that are probably worth taking away and thinking about. The first one is these have loads of potential to activate all the research and insight that sits in your businesses in someone's PowerPoint somewhere on a server. It makes it accessible across the whole business. It's got enough creativity baked in that you can have a sparring partner that can get you a jump on briefs. If you're creative or a strat or you're working in that trying to write briefs, there is enough there to kind of jump you on a little bit. We test them in workshops, so they're kind of like the voice of the audience in a workshop. When a hypothesis or a debate springs up, we can ask them. We're literally working on giving them a voice at the moment with integration of video and voice, so there's a more natural interface. And as we touched on before, even at the executional end, we're starting to kind of test different creative routes, which some creators will hate, but we're starting to test some of that, but again, at low risk and at low cost.
So as Rick mentioned, we're starting to work on other interfaces with these audiences. We're developing a voice interface right now. That's in beta. We're going to be in the bar. I'm not quite sure where the bar is, but we're going to be in the bar, and we'll have Amy with us if anyone wants to kind of come and have a quick beta level chat with Amy after this.
And there is a white paper that we're publishing. If you want, grab us or grab that QR code, get on the list for that, or get in touch with myself and Matt.
I'm going to give everyone 10 seconds to scan. I think we're already over time, sorry. Scanned?
Good.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right, that's us. Thanks.
I'll grab a mic if you thank, guys. Big round of applause for Rick from SocialChain and Matt from Brave Bison. Thank you very much, guys.